Hello, my dear listeners. My name is Kishore Ganesh, and in this episode of the Vocal About Visuals podcast, I'll be reviewing the latest and penultimate episode of the Grand Tour called The Sand Job, featuring who else but Jeremy Clarkson, James May, and Richard Hammond. In one of the earlier episodes of Grand Tour, or maybe Top Gear, I remember Clarkson exclaiming that he wanted to do a race or a show maybe across the Sahara and how that couldn't happen now versus in his youth because of terrorism and global instability. And I think Sahara has been posted on the whiteboard in each of the gang's meetings while deciding the location for their forthcoming specials. And finally, they have the opportunity to do just that in this special. Penultimate is because you might have heard that the trio is planning to focus on their other kinds of content, which is okay, I guess. But my intro to Jeremy, James, and Richard has always been through car shows. So, as much as we get a fix of that from Drive Tribe on YouTube, that only covers James and Richard. Clarkson barely makes an appearance in that and instead is doing farming in that Amazon show, which is by far the most dreary sounding of all their new old projects. Coming to the sand job itself, I've been saying it for a while now. The boys have finally kicked off their COVID hangover and the content has been hitting the heights of the pre-COVID years. The previous episode, Eurocrash, was evidence of that, and the sand job is superior to that. It is a Saharan adventure, and this episode reminded me of why I started watching the Grand Tour in the first place. To live vicariously through the trio, because as much as I want to do something like drive through the Sahara in sports cars, how do I actually do that is the question. So instead, I watch them do it and satiate my sense of adventure, and probably do an adventure that is less logistically taxing. As much as the boys are important, the cars they choose to do these adventures in are characters themselves. And in this episode, they have chosen their fellow actors, aka the cars, well. We have a Jaguar, an Aston Martin, and a Maserati. And even the sounds of those brands, I don't know about you, my listeners, but they light me up. So we have the right cars, but one more vital component remains: the difficulty of the challenge. Or if not difficulty, at least the entertainment value of the challenge. In this episode, even that difficulty/entertainment value is on point because sports cars are going to get modified and are going to be driven in the Sahara Desert. And every element of that idea sounds impressive, or dare I say it, iconic. And that's how this episode plays out too. That familiar chemistry between the boys themselves and the chemistry between the boys and their cars is met with a certain grandness that permeates throughout the episode. The cinematography of this episode particularly needs calling out. From the barren, beautiful landscapes to environmental miracles to man-made marvels, all of it is captured beautifully by the drones and the cameras. Phenomenal work by the cinematographer. And finally, coming to the hosts themselves, the boys have given it their all here. There is a certain sense of polish, a sense of desire to give the quote-unquote ladies and gentlemen a show that they will remember after the final episode of this version of the Grand Tour that is going to air later this year. A Grand Tour that will belong to Mr. Willman, Jezza, Mr. Slowly, and Hamster. Of course, this quartet will be missed, but I think I'll have plenty of time to wax lyrical about the joy that they have brought me over the years in my review of the final episode. And even beyond that, when I revisit a lot of the episodes from the Top Gear and the Grand Tour. For now, let me say that they are stellar in this episode, and as repetitive as it is for me to say this, they are in fine form. This show's perfect for a weekend afternoon chill session with your fam and/or your friends. Check it out along with all the other episodes of the Grand Tour on Prime Video. Once again, my name is Kishore Ganesh. This is the Vocal About Visuals podcast, and thank you, my dear listeners, for your time and for listening. Please do give this podcast a follow on your preferred podcast platforms and on YouTube. Thank you, my dear listeners, for getting me to 100 subscribers on YouTube. Continue supporting me. Follow me on my socials where I will post a lot of content related to probably Arsenal FC, some bits from my life, and also a ton of stuff about movies, TV, and anime. Thank you.